Welcome to Scrum Masters Elite_UK. Subscribe to the channel to explore Scrum thinking and peak performance in sports.
Referring to former Springboks head coach Nick Mallett's statement about the almost no room for error requirement for Handre Pollard. I see more than just a simple professional comment. This is not only a story about a lost match in the United Rugby Championship, where Leinster secured an overwhelming victory, but also a typical cross-section of how people are evaluated in high-performance environments, elite sports, selection pressure, and the harsh demands placed on the playmaker role on the field. 1. When a mistake is no longer just a mistake. At the professional level, especially in the fly-half, number 10, position, every decision has a ripple effect. A wrong kick, a slow decision, or an inaccurate pass does not just remain in that moment, it creates tactical consequences for the entire team. When Nick Mallett says Pollard must not make mistakes, he is not expressing an unrealistic expectation, but highlighting the nature of the role. The game controller must minimize risk as much as possible. However, if we look deeper, no mistakes here cannot be taken literally. No one in elite sport can be 100% perfect. What Mallett actually means is that Pollard's margin of error must be so small that it does not change the outcome of the match. And when those errors appear repeatedly in the game against Leinster, they become a strategic issue rather than an individual mistake.
2. The difference between Pollard and other options. An interesting point in Mallett's argument is the comparison between Handre Pollard and other number 10s, such as Manny Lidbok or Sasha Feinberg-Ngamezulu. Pollard is described as a more control-oriented, tactical player focused on kicking and game management, while others bring unpredictability and the ability to break defensive structures. This creates a fascinating paradox. The less creative explosion a player offers, the more absolute accuracy is expected from them. Because if they do not provide unpredictability, they must guarantee stability. Meanwhile, more high-risk players are often forgiven for mistakes, because they compensate with moments of brilliance that change the game. From a personal perspective, I see this as a form of responsibility balance. No role is easier, only different kinds of pressure exist. 3. The invisible pressure of the playmaker role. People often judge matches by the final result, but rarely understand that a number 10 must make decisions within seconds, based on dozens of variables: opponent positioning, team structure, coaching strategy, weather, and teammates' fitness. When a kickoff or opening kick is not executed well, as in Pollard's case, it is not just a technical error. It affects spatial control, pressing structure, and even the team's psychological state. This is why coaches like Nick Mallett tend to be more demanding of this position. However, this strictness also raises a question. Is it fair to demand perfection from an individual in a system that is itself built on human imperfection?
4. Lessons on evaluating people under pressure. From Handre Pollard's case, I draw an important lesson. In any highly competitive environment, not just sports but also work, education, or society, people are often categorized into low-risk roles and creative roles. People in low-risk roles, like Pollard in Mallett's view, must maintain stability. People in creative roles, like Lidbok, are allowed more mistakes because they provide breakthrough value. This makes me reflect on how we evaluate others in daily life. Sometimes we demand perfection from those responsible for keeping the system running, while being more lenient with those who create excitement, even though both roles are equally valuable. For Springboks fans, this story is a reminder that player selection should not be based on emotion from a single match. A poor performance, such as in the game against Leinster, cannot erase the value that a player like Pollard has built over many years. Fans tend to be extreme in either praising or criticizing. But elite sport requires a longer-term view, where form, tactics, and opponents are constantly changing. Beyond sport, this reflects a common phenomenon in modern society, the no room for error standard. In work, especially in management, finance, or technical roles, even a small mistake can sometimes lead to long-lasting negative judgment, but as Nick Mallett indirectly points out, demanding no mistakes only makes sense when there is a support system and clearly defined roles. Otherwise, it becomes an unrealistic pressure. What matters more is building systems that allow people to make mistakes within acceptable limits, rather than removing them at the first error.
From this story, I draw 3 conclusions. First, no role is easy. Every position carries its own type of pressure, and superficial comparisons between individuals often lead to misjudgment. Second, perfection does not mean never making mistakes, but minimizing them at the most critical moments. Third, a person's value should not be defined by a single moment. but by the entirety of their long journey. The story around Handre Pollard, Nick Mallett's comments, and the internal competition within the Springboks is not just a technical debate about tactics. It is a reminder that in any system, from sport to life, strictness must always be balanced with an understanding of roles, context, and human limits. And perhaps the most important point is not demanding that someone must not make mistakes, but understanding what system they are placed in, what expectations they carry, and what they contribute beyond a single moment on the field.
Goodbye from Scrum Masters Elite_UK, looking at performance in context. Not just a single mistake in sports and work.